Hello and welcome back to Richard's Home Mechanics, and we're carrying on with trying to get this little Suzuki GS 250T running. I've had a time to look round the bike with my friend and we found a few bits missing on it, one of them being the centre stand, which has now turned up, so in the near future I'll be putting that on. Also it had an engine bolt missing, so I've temporarily put a bit of stud in there just to hold the engine while we work on it, but I'm going to source a bolt when I can. But the main issue is we seem to have an issue, a problem with the oil light not coming on when you turn the ignition on. Now I'm going through this bike in stages, so all my videos are not going to be long and boring. They're going to be about 10 minutes max, 15 minutes hopefully. And this one we've got to try and find out why we haven't got an oil light. I have attempted to start it and then soon realised that we've got no oil light. That can mean issues. Is the oil pump working? Has the bulb blown? Or have we got an issue somewhere else with the sensor? So what we're going to do this morning, we're going to do a very quick check using a multimeter, and I'm going to explain in very simple terms. We don't have to go into this really deeply. So we'll need that this morning. We're going to need that, which is a wiring diagram. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to actually, before I do things, I like to explain what I'm doing. There's no point me doing something and people go, well, I don't know what that means. So we're going to flick the camera around. I'm actually going to show on a bit of theory here, a bit of diagram, what we're hoping to achieve and how we're going to do it. And then we'll do it for real. We'll go on to the actual motorcycle using the old multimeter and using the wiring diagram. And we really need to try and find out why we haven't got an oil lamp. I'm not an oil pressure light. I'm not willing to try and start it again until I can get that light and find the issue of what's going on. So we'll go back on the bench here and let's have a look at actually what we are going to do to actually do the testing on this wiring loom. Okay, what we've got here, this is the sort of typical wiring that's going to be supplying that oil pressure light on the motorcycle in the dash. Now for that to work, we're going to need a positive supply to it, which will come from the battery or part of the wiring loom that is lived up from the battery. And for it to also work, it needs to be able to return to a negative, i.e. the frame or the battery or part of the wiring loom, which is also connected to the frame. Right, the issue, what we're going to be doing, we suspect we've either got a break here or a break there, or on the negative that connects to the oil pressure switch, so it could be an issue there. So we've got a few things we've got to check. So basically this is a very simple 12-volt wiring diagram. So this could be the battery here, positive, or it could be just a positive part of the loom. It feeds up to the actual fitting of the lamp. It fits in there, that wire goes in there, connects to that wire, it goes round, and then it returns on the negative. If you have a break here, if you have a break here, or if you have a break there, this light is not going to light up. So at the moment we have got no oil pressure light, so we need to check the lamp. Is it as simple as the lamp filament has gone? Have we lost the feed to it, i.e. the 12-volt feed supply, or have we lost the return to earth? If you lose that, if you have a break in there, or you lose that, it's not going to work. Right, I just want to show you a couple of key words that you'll hear me mention and mention and mention again while I'm doing this. Continuity. We're not going to go into this deeply because when you get into electrical works, it can get a bit mind-blowing. Basically, continuity, we're going to make sure that we haven't got a break in any of them wires going to that fitting or coming out of that fitting. Resistance is what the resistance of the volts coming up the cable from the atoms coming down, but again, we don't need to do that. We're not worried about the resistance reading. We just want to make sure that we get continuity. And if we get continuity, we're going to get resistance. The two go together. Volts. We want to be looking at 12 plus volts. If we get a reading of, say, 7 to 6 volts, we've got an issue. Could be a broken wire. A scenario, if you're working a light in your car or van or motorcycle keeps flickering or is not very bright, these lamps need a minimum, and I've topped my head 12.4 volts. So I'm not quoting it, I'm just saying an example. Now if you're only getting 7 or 8 volts, it's not enough to fire the lamp up. It's not going to work, or it will flicker. And obviously back here to earth, we already spoke that we need a feed, which will be the 12 volts, and then we need a return. We're going to be checking the earth, we're going to be continuing the ground and the earth cables. Without the volts, remember, and without a return, it's not going to work. So I think what we need to do now, we need to go over to the bike, we need to get the wiring diagram sat on the seat, set up the meter. I'll show you how I set it up, and then we're going to actually, I think what we're going to do, check first. We're going to go through, I've got a checklist that I'm going to go through, very simple, going to take minutes, and hopefully we can confirm why we have not got an oil pressure light. I'm suspecting at the top of the moment that it may be the oil pressure switch is not going to earth. If it's not going to earth, it's not going to return, and as we spoke before, if it can't connect to earth, it's broke that circuit, you're not going to get a light. So without further ado, let's get over to the bike, let's get testing. Okay, first things first, let's set this meter up. So we're going to set this to continuity. On this particular meter, it's called Omega. It's like a little horseshoe, right? Now this meter I used to use for house wiring when I was a house wirer. And because these little lamps are not going to have much resistance, I need to set the range quite low. So that's on million ohms, so we don't want that. There we go. We're going to go on the lowest ohm setting we get. Now what we're going to do is test first. Just going to make sure that the actual meter's working. There's no point carrying on if the meter's not working. So I'm going to test continuity on the leads on the meter. There we go. Can you see that? So we know the leads are fine, so we can progress to carry on testing. Right, let's test these lamps. Let's test the first one. I'm going to go on the body and the positive underneath. There we go. We know that's a good bulb. Okay, now I know that is a good bulb because that's a spare one. That's sitting here. Now this is a knackered bulb, so we know that bulb come out of the actual oil pressure light, so we know it's working. So we can leave that out for the moment because we need to get in there and test the actual fitting. Now let's test this bulb. While we got it out, I just want to show the difference between a working resistance bulb and a bulb that's stuffed. On the outside of the casing, on the underneath of the pin, and there you go, overload, out of range. That needs to go in the bin. So now we've proved, we know the lamp is working that I've taken out of the fitting for the oil pressure light. I think we need to progress onto the wiring loom on the bike and actually do a few little quick tests and try and find out why we can't get this oil pressure to switch on. Right, we're ready to start testing. So first things first, always important when you're using a multimeter is set the function right. We don't want it on ohms. Now we're working on this particular stage 12 volt DC, which is direct current, not alternating current. Right, so we're going to set it to DC. The name of the game, we haven't got an oil pressure light lighting up. We need to find out what is going on. So first of all, I'm going to actually see by using the earth on this bike, maybe the handlebars or a nut or anywhere, to see if we can actually get a voltage reading. If we get a voltage reading at the fitting, doesn't mean it's still going to work, because what's happening is, yes, we may have the supply coming up from the loom, the positive, remember, and the return, which is a negative, will be going through to the handlebars or anywhere. So if these work, it means all this is connected to the earth, back to the frame, and then onto the battery, a negative. So basically, this will not confirm what I'm doing, whether we've lost the actual earth supply to it, the actual separate wire that feeds to it, maybe from the actual oil pressure switch. This will just confirm that we've got power. So let's crack on, put the ignition on. Now that light there is the neutral light. We're going to go on the pin at the back, which is the positive, and I'm going to try and find an earth, and I'm going to try and go on the handlebars. Now there we go, we've got a reading there, not great, just under 12 volts. That will power up. So happy days, we've now got a voltage. Now what I want to do now is, we've literally done a little cheat there. I've used the earth of the other part of the bike, but I haven't confirmed that we haven't lost the earth down to the oil pressure switch or anywhere else where there's an earth. So we need to resort back to the old wiring diagram, and what I want to do, just to confirm, I want to trace back the feed wire, which is actually the positive, and make sure we haven't got a break in there. Once I'm happy with that, we can then progress onto the return wire, which is the earth ground wire. Let's have a look. Now here's, I know you can't see it very well. Let's have a look. Now I know that that is the oil pressure light there. Let's just check. I tell a lie. It's number 5, and the wiring colour is an orange, which will be the positive by stating, looking at the grid, and the yellow and green is the return, which will be the earth or ground, as the Americans say it. So just having a quick look at the wiring loom now. It's as simple as this. Use your eyes, you know, before you start testing, use your eyes. Now here we go, moving it about, I can see that's the loom that's going up to the fitting, so it's highly likely, and it is, that that is the wire where the power feed is going into. So what we're going to do now, make sure we've conditioned off, glasses on, we're being serious now. I think this is the plug here that feeds up to that light fitting, or feeds the indicators or the lights. We don't know yet. Now I've eyeballed, I've clocked that there's an orange wire there, look, an orange wire. Now we've already checked on the wire diagram, let's double check. Number 5 is an orange going down. Now that's part of the system. It comes down here, and as you can see, let's have a look, it branches here. So it looks like that's the connection, that plug there. So let's test it. So let's have a look. So we've got an orange there, and we've got an orange here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the ignition on. We're going to probe that with a positive, and we're going to go back to earth. And by doing that, we can at least confirm that we have got a permanent feed going to that fitting. So here we go. So ignition on. We're going to probe into the orange, which is pinned there. Now we're looking for a voltage. This is actually coming down from further down in the loom before it gets to the headlamp. Let's go for an earth. Will that work on there? Yes, it does, look. So I'm just coming off the handlebars. Anywhere on this frame is probably going to get me an earth, look, because it's all tied in. Or you can go direct to the battery, but I'm just using the local convenient position, which is the handlebars, which are obviously they're mounted and they're earthed. Let's have a look. If I want to make double sure, I can go straight down to the terminal on the earth. Here we go. So I've gone straight onto the actually booster pack, which is the negative, the earth, the ground. There's so many words people call it. So we can confirm that that feed is definitely working. So happy days. If you notice there, obviously the neutral light went off because we disconnected it. So if we switch that off, connect that back up there, happy days. We've now got the neutral light. So let's trace back. We've got an actual 12-volt supply going to the oil pressure light. We haven't got an issue with that. We've backtracked. We've basically checked where it comes up from the bottom of the wiring loom, and we've got a feed to there. So obviously we've got a feed to there. We've got no problem in the break on the feed going to this connector here. And we've also confirmed that up to there, we've got a feed there because we did an earth. And if we had a break between that plug, that fitting, we would not have got a reading when we first started. So basically, I think we need to progress and check the return earth or the ground on this fitting. So I think that's going to be the next stage. Right, we've now progressed. We've tested the positive and we're happy that we have got a feed, a 12-volt plus supply up to that fitting for the oil pressure lamp. Now what we're going to do now is we're going to do a quick continuity test on the wire that feeds from the oil pressure switch all the way up to the fitting, oil fitting, lamp fitting. So basically we've got the wire coming from the outside there on the fitting all the way up through the loom and fitting that light. So we are just testing the bit of wire from there all the way through the loom to make sure we've actually got an earth going up there, because again, if we've lost no positive supply, or if we lose the return, the earth, the ground, etc., it's not going to work. So basically you can see what I've done there. We've already used the wiring diagram and we've identified it was a green and yellow wire, and as you can see in there, just at the back is a green and yellow wire. There is the oil pressure switch, so we're connected onto the wire there. So we are going to test from here, this bit of wire, all the way up to the light fitting. So let's go and have a look and see if we've actually got continuity. Okay, we're back up the top of the bike. Again, before we do any testing, we need to set what range we're after. Now we're testing continuity, which is omega, which is the little horseshoe sign. So we know we've connected the other side to the wire, which is feeding the return wire all the way up to here. So when we connect into the fitting, we're hoping to get a reading on the meter of continuity and the resistance. Again, the resistance, I'm not fussed about at the moment. If I was doing cable calculations for breakers, etc., then obviously it's a different well. But we are talking about 12-volt bike system, direct current. So we're going to stick with that at the moment. So we now know the outer fitting is the earth fitting for the lamp. So we need to go in there. So, and there we go. Can you see that? We've got a 0.04 ohms, which is a nice low resistance. So we've just confirmed that we have got no break on the earth. So let's have a think about this. Let's recap. Let's turn it off. So we have got 12 volts going to this. Brilliant. We've also got no break on the I was going to say CPC, we're talking about house bashing, on the return ground or the earth. That wire, so we've got a full wire going up to the light and a full wire going back to the earth. So that is a circuit. So we're thinking to ourselves, why isn't it working? I'm suspecting that we have got an issue with that oil pressure switch. Now I've done a little bit of revision last night and they are prone to play up. So what we're going to do, I think we need to jump back down on our knees and we're going to do a quick continuity test on the oil pressure switch. Now I've got to think about what I'm saying here because I don't want to get it wrong, and I'm sure someone will quote me if I'm wrong with an oil pressure switch. When they're cold, they make a connection. So this bike has not been run, so inside that switch, it's run by pressure. There is a connection inside that switch like that, yeah? Once the engine runs, it opens the switch, breaks the circuit, light goes out. So let's recap. If you've got a connection in there, you've got a complete circuit, positive to earth. So when it's cold, that light should go on. The minute you have a pressure in the bike, the pressure goes into the oil pressure switch, opens the circuit, light will go off. That's how it should be working. So if we go down here and test, now this switch is cold, we should have a continuity reading. If we haven't, it's highly likely that the oil pressure switch is at fault. And the rest of the wiring diagram, the wiring loom, is okay. So let's jump back down there. Let's just confirm if it is that switch that's gone. Here we go. We're back at here. Now, as you can see in there, just at the back is the oil pressure switch. Now, when that is cold, that needs to be closed. Okay, so the bike's not been run, so we should get continuity. It's like it's a little switch in there that should be closed, and when the bike starts and pressure goes into the switch, it opens up, hence turns your oil light on. So when you get in your car or your motorbike, you turn it on, the red light comes on. This is because the oil pressure switch is closed down there. As soon as the oil pressure builds up, it opens it up and the light will go off. As we've spoken about, it breaks the circuit. Break the circuit, you lose power, no light, and that's the idea of it. It's proving that the oil pressure switch is there to prove that you have got an oil pump that is working, that is circulating. If your oil pump had failed, that oil light is not going to go out. Engine damage, shut it off. So that's how important an oil pressure light is. Please don't take it for granted. Right, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to do a very, very quick continuity test. As before, we're going to go to Omega, which is the little horseshoe sign. Test the continuity quickly across my leads. We're not worrying about reading the resistance. We just want to get a continuity. So let's have a look. We're going to go on the actual switch itself. And we're going to go to earth. We're going to use anywhere on here. As you can see, out of range. We're not getting continuity. Let's try here. Let's try the frame. Now remember before, all these were earth before. We're getting absolutely no continuity. And let's go the final stage. Now this is the actual earth connection for the battery. Now that's bolted straight to the frame. Now if I don't get a reading from there, continuity, this switch is knackered. Here we go. So we've tried them all. It's highly likely, it looks like this switch has had its day. I think we need to order a new one. And then, if we can order a new one, it looks like all this, I or pulsar, electronic ignition. Can't remember what the terminology is because I'm still learning about bikes again after a few years. This has got to come out and replace it. So that's probably going to be the next video. So let's go back up on the bench and just recap on what we've actually done, shall we? There you go then. So 10 minutes and we look like we've now diagnosed the issue of why we have not got an oil pressure light and the importance of having that light. If it doesn't work, or I don't know it's worked, the oil pump may not be working, and then you've got a seized engine in minutes, and you're talking major money. Anyway, so I'm going to get one of them on order. So that'll possibly be the next little video. Putting that in, taking that, again, sorry about terminology, it's going through my head. The electronic pickup plate, the used to be points, but the pulsars now. We need to take that out, get the new oil pressure switch fitted in, connect the plates back in, the pulsars and that, electronic pulsars which replace the points, and we'll have a go and actually see if we can fire it up. Happy days. Did you see that was not rocket science? And I hope you have enjoyed my video on this. I've got plenty more to come. I go slowly through what I do, and I like to explain how I do it. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you to the new subscribers that are coming onto my channel daily. It's really good of you. And the existing subscribers who take the effort to actually watch my videos. We'll see you on the next stage on this little Suzuki GS. You never know, we might even get it running. Catch you later.